tutorial is for an eggless chocolate sponge cake. It's another recipe that I get asked for quite a lot because it's eggless. So today I'm going to show you how to make the sponge cake, and it's enough mixture for one 8-inch round tin. It does give you quite a thin sort of sponge, so if you do want to make two of them and sandwich them together, just times the recipe by 2. I am not going to use an 8-inch tin, I'm actually going to use 2 small 6-inch tins. So this recipe will either do 2 small 6-inch sponges or 1 fairly thin 8-inch sponge. I will do everything the same as normal, sort of walk through what I'm doing, put it in the oven, and then do a little video at the end to show you what mine looks like. But for now, the first thing you need to do is get your ovens preheated at 160 degrees and get your tins ready like this, so parchment on the bottom and greased all the way around, and we can then get started. Right, so my oven is on and preheating, and we're just going to start mixing all the ingredients together now. But before we do that, there's one step that we need to do. So in the ingredients, you would have seen that there is semi-skimmed or full-fat milk in this recipe, and a teaspoon of lemon juice. So what I've done is I've put the 180 mils of milk in a glass and put in the 1 teaspoon of lemon juice and just given that a stir. And I've left that now for about, I'd say 5 minutes. If you can, leave it for about 10 minutes, just till you might see that the milk is starting to thicken. If you can't physically see that it's thickening, don't worry, just use it anyway after about 10 minutes. What that is basically a replacement for buttermilk, because I find buttermilk impossible to get hold of. So it's just a way of making it at home. So that is 180 mils of milk with 1 teaspoon of lemon juice. So that's ready to go. I'm going to pop that over here. But first of all, I'm going to explain what I've got in my bowls. So I've got my dry ingredients in one bowl and my wet kind of liquid ingredients in another. So in here I've got, to remind myself, 160 grams of self-raising flour, 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, 200 grams of caster sugar, and 40 grams of cocoa powder. I use kind of any cocoa powder. There's a nice Bourneville one which is quite dark. Most cocoa powders are dark anyway, so you're not going to get a kind of a light chocolate cake. It's going to be quite an intense dark chocolate cake. So all those dry ingredients in here, all ready together and already sifted. And then in my bowl, which we're going to add to the dry ingredients in a moment, is 55 grams of butter, salted or unsalted is completely fine. 60 grams of plain yogurt, you can use Greek yogurt if you want to. 60 mils of vegetable oil, yes. And lastly, 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So that's all the kind of liquidish ingredients in one bowl. And all we're going to do is add the liquid ingredients into the dry ingredients and then give them a mix with the mixer for a couple of minutes until everything's combined. Not forgetting to add the milk as well. So let's do that now. So I've been mixing that for about 1.5 minutes and it's quite nicely combined. What you'll end up with is a mixture that is kind of like a really runny mousse, which is the sort of texture and consistency that you want. So I'm just going to take this out and show you. I'm just going to get everything off the sides, bring it all together. Oops. So if you can see that, it's kind of like a really loose mousse, and that's a perfect texture. So what we're going to do is put this into our tins and just evenly split this between 2 6-inch tins, or like I was saying before, it will make 1 8-inch sponge as well. And while I'm doing this, one thing I would say is that if you don't have any silicone spatulas, sorry Bubba, I won't be long. If you don't have any silicone spatulas, which is what I'm using here, it's definitely worth investing in some. If you do like baking, you bake a lot, even for cooking, they're absolutely brilliant because they get every little bit of your batter out, so you don't waste anything. Okay, so that's all done. Right. Okay, so then I'm just going to give them a little shake to lower them out. And they are now ready to go into the oven, which is already preheated at 160 degrees. One other thing I am going to do, because with chocolate cakes you tend to get a bit of a dome on them, especially because the mixture is quite liquid. So what I'm also going to do is use a dish like this, just a normal baking dish. And when I put these in, I'm also going to put this at the bottom of the oven and pour in sort of halfway, pour in boiling water. And when you close the oven door, hopefully that's going to create some steam, and that steam I find always gives my cakes a bit more of a level finish. You might still get a bit of a dome, but when you cool it, that should come down slightly. And it's just easier to work with, so you don't have to trim off the dome. So I'm going to do that once I put these in the oven, and then I'm going to bake them for, I would say, about 35 minutes. But again, when I bring them out, I'll tell you exactly how long it's going to take. Okay, Baba, I'm coming. Hi guys, so I've now taken my sponges out of the oven. They were in for a total of 35 minutes, just until they sort of bounce back when you give them a little poke. As you can see, they're fairly thin, so if you are going to do this in an 8-inch tin, I would recommend doing 2 sponges and sandwiching them together. And then you can pretty much do whatever you want with them. I'm going to use a chocolate buttercream with this. The recipe for our buttercream is in our easy peasy cupcake tutorial, and then I just add a little bit of chocolate ganache to that to make it chocolatey, and you can add as much or as little as you want to. And that's, sorry, that's a little one. But that's it, and I hope